You're listening to Mark of the Maker. Hey folks, you're listening to Mark of the Maker, and I'm Mark Steiner, and this is, well, it's going to be our third Minisode, and this one is not on that same, well, maybe it's kind of an influences episode, but I think we're going to bin this one under a slightly different topic. I have Mr. Sean Kendrick with me tonight.
Hey, bud.
So Sean and I are going to talk about his experience going back to school.
Woo!
Right. He's partying in Fort Lauderdale right now on spring break.
Yeah, buddy.
Yeah. So maybe we're thinking this might turn into a series. Is that kind of where we're heads at on this thing, Sean?
Yeah, I mean, I don't see it. Well, I mean, since it involves me, it ain't going to be anything like regular, but I could see talking about this a few times, especially as my course of study progresses and I learn new stuff and,
yeah,
just generally progress.
Right. Well, and we had lots of people talking with us about this whole thing. I assume you got a feedback as well after the episodes where you talked about kind of going on this adventure.
Yeah. And most of my friends already knew about it, so we were talking about it anyway, and they're all curious as how it's going. And this is just the easiest way to handle it. And, I just finished my midterms and figure I can give a pretty decent appraisal of where I stand.
Right. So let's kind of start where this whole thing kicks off from, Sean. What was your motivation to go do this? I know we talked about that a little bit in the main episodes, but what kind of spurred you to actually, I mean, lots of people talk about or think about going back to school, or learn a new skill or whatever. And sometimes, like, I have some friends that went and took welding and some other stuff because they were going to go off and to build hot rods and some other stuff just as like a hobby. But in this case, what was your motivation to actually get in motion, right? Because it's not easy to go do this.
Yeah, definitely not. I certainly had my trepidations about it. Man, like with most things, it's not just one factor. It's a couple factors that played into getting the whole thing rolling. I guess the top two, all the metalworking I know I've picked up here and there. I've either taught myself or had somebody show me. And I always felt like my toolbox could be way more complete. And I felt like, getting good, solid instruction would help a lot with that, getting a linear course of study that you have a point A and you're going to a point B and you cover all this ground in between. So I had it in my head that I wanted to get some kind of education of some sort just to get better, just to understand my equipment and my tools better. And then when Kane enrolled in the machining program where I'm going, I went with him one day and I did a tour of their facility and I talked to the instructors. And I was just really impressed with the instructors, really impressed with the facility. I mean, I was kind of giddy, actually. I was like, oh, look at all these tools. I was just going from machine to machine.
Right.
That played a big part in it, especially getting to talk to both the instructors and hitting it off pretty well with them from the get-go. And that made it a lot less daunting.
Yeah, very cool. So, I mean, I know from talking to Michael, because he's the same way, right? He was a journalism major in college or whatever, right? So when he came at the knife thing, it was he's picking up skills, but in a very fragmented way, right?
Yeah.
Like, okay, here's a process I need to do. I got to drill holes, right? What's the right way to do that? What kind of tools do I need? What kind of fixture do I need to do it? But then you end up bouncing around and like, there's not really, like you said, a coherent path through it all.
Yeah. I mean, I've got a decent toolbox on me, but it's every tool's from a different store. You know what I mean?
Right.
It ain't like I got the full Craftsman line kicking here.
Right. Right. Yeah, no doubt. So why now, Sean? I mean, is it because it ties in with Kane's thing, or is this something you'd thought about in the past and just kind of never got moving on, or why do it now?
Well, the thought had crossed my mind in the past, but man, it just really didn't seem feasible. And with Kane getting in it, I saw what his course load was like. I saw how often he was having to go to school, what homework consisted of. And man, I ain't getting no younger. If I'm going to do the damn thing, I needed to go ahead and do it. So that was the big impetus. Just go ahead. You know that this is a solid program and just do the damn thing.
Right.
Which actually I told the head of the course, head of the department, and he's also my, I guess, student advisor. When he was like, so how many credit hours do you want? And I was like, man, I want as many as you can give me every semester because I ain't getting no younger. Let's do this thing.
Exactly. So where exactly are you right now? How far are you along? What classes have you taken so far? Kind of where are you on the timeline?
All right. Well, my course load for this semester, I have a computer class, which is a required core class. I got to get it out of the way. And then I have fundamentals of machine tools and then applied machine tools, which is like 101 and 102 at the same time. And I kind of enjoy it being that way. I like having lab 2 days a week.
All right. So what's the difference between the two classes? One is actual tools in use, and one is how the tools work and the basics of how the stock removal happens, or?
No, I mean, you start cutting metal after day probably 4 in fundamentals.
Okay.
But you start off with a hacksaw.
Yeah.
Whereas our first day in applied, we went in there and we were already behind the curveball because everybody who was in there had already had fundamentals. So they all went and just started working on their projects. And the instructor took me and Rachel and my other lab buddy Joaquin aside, and he's like, all right, those guys will be working. Let me show you some stuff on the lathe. And let's see, that day pretty much learned how to use a lathe bare bones and learned how to run the screw attach or the screw forming part of it and cut my first screw thread that day.
Very cool.
Yeah, well, and it's fun. I enjoy it. I'm the guy at the end of the day. Everybody's like, is this son of a bitch going to finish up so we can clean up and get out of here?
Right. So I know from our recent conversation in one of our, maybe it was in the last episode, you didn't seem to be a fan of your computer class, Sean.
Man, just the computer class online, I don't dig it. I could have a perfect score in that class if I just had a person I could turn to and be like, hey, what the fuck's going on here? What am I not clicking right?
Right. So what is that? What do you have to do in that class? What kind of stuff?
Well, everything's broke up. You have your training, then a project, and an exam. And basically the training walks you through everything you're going to have to do in the exam. And the project is an applied thing. Like the last thing I finished up was, let's see, what was it? PowerPoint. I had to edit and correct a PowerPoint presentation as part of the project.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, it kind of made me hate you a little bit. I was like, Mark would probably enjoy this bullshit. God damn him.
Mark has to do that every day of his life.
I do not envy you that. Although your PowerPoint, on point. You got the skills. Knowing what I know now, being on the inside.
Right. Yeah, well, I think that's probably true with all this stuff, right? I expect that as you go through these different sections or modules or whatever in your classes, it might give a little different perspective on, oh, I see what so-and-so is doing over there on that knife, or, some project that somebody's working on. And I understand what went into that a little better now. Is that a fair guess?
Oh, definitely. I understand why. Yeah. I can look at, there's stuff I've looked at and I'm like, I know how he did that. And I know why he did that.
Right. So best parts, worst parts so far?
Best part, let's see, lab time. Man, I just like working on all the different machines. And the primary shop at the Moorhead campus where we do our applied class is a fantastic shop. I mean, it's just a really well kitted out work area. There ain't too much a fella could want for, and they just got a brand new Haas CNC center in that, man, it's still got all the packing tape on it.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah, it's got like a 24 tool changer, fourth axis capability. Well, a fourth axis, not just the capability for one. They've actually got it installed now.
Awesome.
So I got to work my way up to that guy though.
Yeah, for sure. And computer's the worst?
Yeah, and it's not that it's difficult. It just frustrates me.
Yeah. And
part of it's our internet connection.
Is that right? Even at the school?
Oh, no, at the school, it's fine.
Oh, you're doing it at home. Yeah, working on your home stuff. Yeah. So it's an online class, the computer class?
Unfortunately, like, yeah,
Uh,
that's the problem with it. If I could actually have somebody, I mean, we're talking maybe 2 questions per module that I've got to do, but
yeah.
there ain't nobody there to answer them sons of bitches. So I don't get 100% on my tests.
Right, right, right.
And man, I'm kind of competitive. I don't like missing any on a test. And if I do miss one, I'll probably fucking argue with you on why I got it right.
There you go. That does not surprise me at all. I totally would expect you to be competitive about that, which is healthy, right? I mean, it can make you crazy too.
Yeah, not with how I am, man. There ain't nothing I do that's fucking healthy, especially shit like that.
Let's not talk crazy over here.
Yeah, I'll take that son of a bitch to the edge of the cliff and then just go on over. Fuck it.
What it seems like one of the cool parts, or maybe one of the differences, like a before and after on even the exposure you've had so far, might be on thinking about how you want to continue to develop the tooling that you have in your own shop, where maybe some of this might give you a better insight on, oh, okay, now I know, I better understand why that guy might want that particular machine or kind of machine or tool or whatever. Is that factor into this thing at all? Like, where have you been able to actually apply it to the stuff you're doing at home yet?
Yeah, already a little bit. And there's tools that, and then we're just talking small tools that I need to pick up that would make everything a little easier. So
Yeah.
but all in good time, all in good time. I mean, I've picked up, and just some shop habits, better shop habits, better machinist habits and techniques. And that's just from my instructor right now, a fella named Todd Johnson. Big shout out to Todd. He's a rock star, man. He's awesome. And he's a knowledgeable dude. And just having him there and all of his experience, I'll be like, hey man, spot check me on this. This is how I'm coming at this. Is there a different way I should be coming at this to make it better? And 9 times out of 10, he'll be like, well, why don't you try it like this? And I mean, he's just a wealth of knowledge.
Now that's got to be cool, having some kind of mentor, reference, professor, whatever you want to call it, right? I mean, somebody to help guide a little bit.
Oh yeah, definitely. Well, especially one that you can tell they're competent, and you can also tell that they enjoy what they're doing.
Right.
Like when he was instructing us, he would actually have to hold back from jumping in and just starting working. I mean, you can tell when somebody enjoys what the hell they're doing, because they'll be chomping at the bit, to not just help, but get all elbow up in it. And really, that's the way both the instructors are. Like the head of the program, Kenny, when he was showing me the new Haas, man, you would have thought he was a kid who just got the newest Huffy bike on Christmas morning.
Yeah.
So, and that impressed me. I was like, man, yeah, he is. I can get along with this guy if he's talking about tools like that and knows how to run them the way he do.
Right. No, that's something I've said about some of the work that I do, or more of what I used to do as a development engineer, was every day I went to work at a place where we had the most killer toy box maybe in the state, right? Or certainly in the county, where it was like, there's crazy CMM measuring equipment and shadow graphs, and down the hall, there's crazy instrumentation to measure stuff that you didn't even know you could measure. And someplace else, there's a bunch of toolmaker guys and machines and CNC equipment. And it was just a kid in a candy store, right? It's like, wow, they're going to let me play with this and pay me to do it too. That's kind of awesome.
Hell yeah. That's what I'm saying. And man, now speaking of the CMM, I actually have metrology next semester, and I'll get to learn to run the CMM we have in the shop there.
Very cool. I was always fascinated by that.
Me too, man. Just looking at it, I don't know how the fuck it works, but I want to find out.
Exactly. Well, and I think that's the cool part about, I think Birch has mentioned a couple times on the show, and people that have run a big machine know, but there's an attachment that's like a probe that's basically, well, it's very similar to the way a CMM works. And it goes in and looks at the part before it starts cutting, or can check it part way through or whatever. And seeing that whole thing run at the same time, or in the middle of a process where parts are being cut, is pretty fascinating. So neat stuff.
It is, man. Well, I mean, I'm a nerd about that shit anyway. I got all kinds of episodes of how it's made on the DVR.
Yeah. Well, it's like some of it's almost like real live science fiction come to life kind of stuff.
Yeah. And man, some of it's just I don't know. It relaxes me. I like watching machines cut metal and uniform chip come off.
Right, right. Well, very cool. So you mentioned metrology is coming up next semester. What else you got coming up?
Next semester, as far as the machining classes go, I've got metrology and blueprinting for machinists, and then I have a core math class I got to get out of the way.
Okay.
Which, taking that one in person, I've learned my lesson about online courses. It may be for some folks, but not for this guy.
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't finish my master's degree, but I got halfway through, and it was, this is a long time ago, so it was before online classes, but it was basically you got a videotape in the mail. Then you would watch this videotape series and make notes and stuff, and then you would get an exam. When exam time came, there was a proctor that was set up, and you'd take it locally, like in a conference room at work. But damn, it was hard to sit and watch video. Every time I watched one, I'm like, and it was a good school that this was all through. So it was kind of like, man, I am 100% confident I could consume this information much more easily, much less brain stress if I was actually sitting in front of the professor than, watching a videotape or whatever. So I got a feeling the online thing must be the same kind of stuff.
Yeah, very similar. And man, I don't know. I've done the podcast too much because I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, this fucking narrator is awful and they could have edited that together so much better. What the fuck? What is this Bush League dog shit?
Right, right. That's funny. Well, man, you got other stuff you wanted to talk about relative to this whole thing, the school thing, or how it's fitting with your stuff? Or I know Birch gave you a hard time about his Kane picking on you as an underclassman or whatever. I love that idea.
Now, actually, we went to school with him a couple Mondays ago, and he was just bustling around keeping busy. He didn't say boo to us, really.
Right, right.
Yeah, man, I don't know. It's been good for me on a lot of levels. It's like I've got a hobby almost.
Yeah.
That actually plays into what I do for a living, which helps. And I just feel like in the long run, it's going to bear way more fruit than even I had thought it would.
It seems like there might be some aspect to this that could actually lend to the motivation from a knife making perspective as well. Like, this makes me think more about or get more excited about or interested in, not that you're not interested in making knives, but you know what I mean? Like, it seems like it would almost want to kind of spur you on a little bit.
Yeah, well, it's got me thinking about some other things that I hadn't thought about in a while. Like, it's had me thinking real hard about making ballies, because there's a few things I've learned that would lend themselves real well to popping out bally handles in a fairly productive manner, at least as fairly as I get,
Yeah, that would be awesome.
And we'll see. All the ballies I drew up, though, is like, I want this blade and that handle, and there's no way it'll fucking fit. And then, when shit don't bend to my will, I just discard it and try to destroy it. So.
Right.
But we'll see. We'll see how it works out.
Yeah, very cool.
And just as we go along, it's just going to, the whole course is set up so as you go along, the tolerances that are expected of you on the parts you make become tighter and tighter and tighter.
Okay, that makes sense.
Until you're working in the 10,000th of an inch range as far as your tolerance wiggle goes.
Yeah.
Which, that ain't a lot.
Right. For the kids at home, that's really, really small.
Really, really small. Yes, sir. Which, and at the job Kane works right now, that's their standard tolerance. Their bare minimum is a 10,000th tolerance. Yeah. So it's held him in good stead.
Yeah.
And then, it's been a different experience too. And just, it's got me out of town or out of the house and in front of people. And I don't get out much and meet new people. So I've had to do that, which has been good for me in a way. Not being, the fucking loner hermit thing.
Yeah, that's a very common knife maker problem, right? The whole cooped up by yourself in the shop, whatever thing. And I can see where that'd make a guy crazy after a while.
If nothing else, it makes you a little odd.
Right. Yeah, I bet.
It gives a fella a chance to let his moods take hold of him here and there, and that ain't always the best thing.
So, Sean, you mentioned in one of our earlier conversations about this that there may be an opportunity to be able to work in the shop at the school on other stuff, like on other kinds of projects or knife stuff or whatever. Is that looking like something that's going to pan out?
Yeah, no, I know that I can come in and work in the shop any day that one of my instructors is in there. They've already gave me pretty much carte blanche. They're like, you can come in, you can use the equipment. There's never really a rush on anything. So come in and use the facilities as you see fit. And eventually I'd like to work on some projects like next semester. I have my math class. Well, it's in the afternoon, and I figure I'll just show up for it probably 4 or 5 hours early and put in some lab time and then do my math class. And who knows what'll come out of that, because next semester I don't have any projects due. Everything's either measuring stuff that's already made or blueprinting out stuff that hasn't been made yet.
Okay.
And I've got an idea or two. Like the bylaws of the school, they're big on you can't work on anything that's a weapon or a part of a weapon, yada, yada, yada.
Right.
But ain't nothing saying I can't work on divot tools.
Right.
The world may need a folding divot tool.
There you go. There you go.
Maybe an automatic divot tool if I feel froggy. Listen to fucking Captain Big Shot talking. Yeah, I'll just throw a spring in there. It'll be great.
Right.
It's that fucking easy, right?
A little big for his britches over here. Yeah, too funny. So you mentioned something to me in an offline conversation, Sean, about one of your instructors having a sign off on the blueprints. That was a pretty funny story. You want to talk about that?
Oh yeah, man. I knew that this dude was cool. Yeah, if there had been any doubt before that, which there wasn't, I knew he was cool at this point. About half of our blueprint sheets that we use to create our projects for our applied and our fundamentals courses, they're laid out like a blueprint sheet you would get in a machine shop. There's what's called the title block at the bottom, and there's spaces for engineers and quality control managers to sign off. And one of the QC managers who, quote unquote, signs off on it has the initials EVH. And I asked my instructor, I was like, hey, man, am I the first guy who's asked this, but is this fucking Eddie Van Halen or what? And he looks at me and he goes, well, yeah, who the hell else would it be?
Oh, that's fantastic.
So I was like, yeah, I can roll with this.
Yeah, man. Why not? That's great. Wait till your project has a bunch of crazy stripes going across it. Black and white or
the wolf
yellow
gang.
and black. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, I do the red and white and black, definitely. That's classic.
Heck yeah. OG stuff.
Mm-hmm. Van Halen, not Van Hagar, right?
Right, exactly. Never Van Hagar.
Never.
All right, man. Well, thanks for taking the time to sit down for a little bit and talk about this. I think it's an interesting thing. And like you said, maybe we'll circle back a little ways down the road, maybe in your second semester sometime or just at the end of it maybe or something, and kick out another one of these minisodes kind of talking about what else has happened and what you're finding value in. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, man, I mean, I could go on, but I don't want to gush too much about it. I enjoy the program. I'm glad I did it. And it's a big positive. And to be honest with you, I would be hard pressed not to recommend it to other makers if they can find a program. If you feel like your toolbox is lacking a little bit, most of the community colleges will give you a tour of the campus. They'll give you a thorough going over their facilities and what they have to offer. All you got to do is ask.
Yeah. Well, I've certainly had people mention, hey, I heard that thing about Sean going to school. That's pretty cool. I should think about doing something like that. So like you said, maybe it'll be helpful to some other folks.
Yeah, I mean, I would recommend taking a tour of the campus, touring their lab facilities, and if they'll allow it, auditing a day of class and just seeing how the general class day goes.
There you go.
Whoever thought I would be the voice for higher education, right?
Beyond improbable.
Yeah, no shit. Truth being stranger than fiction, man. We're proving it out.
Exactly. Well, Birch keeps talking about doing something, so maybe this minisode will help motivate him. He could use a little classroom social skill kind of time.
I think he would benefit from it on a few levels if he did. Yeah. Far be it from me to tell him how to live his life, but I think it would be a positive for him.
Yeah.
I mean, if I was really going to tell him how to live his life, he'd ruin it. It'd be awful, but it'd be fun till it fucking burn up,
That's right. It'd be off the rails.
Yeah. No shit, like a train that hit the penny on a train track.
Right. All right. Well, cool. Thanks again for sitting down to talk about it, Sean. We hope people enjoy the insights and following along with you.
No, thanks for letting me jabber about it.
And we're working on our next full episode. We're going to have an interview with someone that's a little bit newer to the scene. We haven't done a new-ish maker. He probably won't like me calling him a new maker, but feels like a newer guy to the scene. And I think it'll be one folks enjoy. So we'll talk a little bit more about that when we get closer to releasing that episode.
Man, don't you think it's weird how in this community, until you're about a decade in, you're kind of the new guy?
That seems to always be the case, right?
Yeah, I don't think it's just this community, really.
Yeah, well, that's true. All right, well, thanks again, Sean, and thanks everybody for listening and follow along with us.
Thank you, guys.
To learn more about our makers, you can find Tom Crine on the web at crineknives.net, in his Facebook group, Crine Knives, or in his Instagram account at Crine Knives. For Michael Birch, check birchtreeblades.com, Facebook group Birch Tree Blade Works, or Michael's Instagram at birchtreeblades. For myself and the Raygun Bead Project, we're on the web at raygundivision.com. We have a Facebook group called Raygun Division, or my personal Instagram at msteiner. For those interested in photos, references from the show, or some discussion about the show itself, you can find us on the web at markofthemaker.com, in a Facebook group called Mark of the Maker, or on our Instagram at Mark of the Maker. Last but not least, the ultra cool and haunting background music we use for the show is a piece called Noir Guitar by Stevie's Amp Shack, found at the Free Music Archive and licensed under Creative Commons CC BY 4.0. Thanks for listening.